Okay, we're getting towards the end of Halacha Aleph, so we're going to talk today about whether you can make Chalav Yisroel through video cameras. And really, this was supposed to be back many times ago. We had mentioned it then when we talked about making Chalav Yisroel. But in order to really understand the Shaila, we needed to wait till we went through the questions about Chalav Stam, and then we're really ready to hear about what the Shaila really is about if you do by video. That's why we pushed it off until now. Okay. For a couple of years already, people have been trying and actually making Chalav Yisroel by video. And the reason why they do it, the reason why they want to do it is because, if you think about it, you could have one mashgiach sit in an office with 20 computer screens in front of him. He can sit if he wants to send it to Thomas. And he sits there and he can oversee 20 farms, as many farms as you give him. Every screen, so you can watch how many farms could he watch at the same time. He can sit nice and comfortably. For the milking. He can sit there nice and comfortably in his office, wherever he is, watching farms all over the place.
I have a Shiloh already.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
I know, but what about the trucks? How do you seal them?
Well, we'll get there. Give me a minute. Okay, so he could sit there in his office and do whatever he needs to do, what he has to do, and one guy could give him 1 million farms. They also think that there's another advantage, which is that's like a practical advantage. You save a lot of money, right. But there's another advantage, which is that if you're trying to make a mersis, then they say there's a much better mersis, because if you have a mashgiach walking around the farm, the guy could know, the mashgiach went to the other side, and they could sneak something in. But over here, you have no idea when you're being watched. The cameras are all over the place. You have no idea when you're being watched.
You have a light that goes on when they're specifically being used.
No. All the cameras are on. They're all running. The guy's watching the screen. If he goes out to daven mincha, nobody knows that he went to daven mincha. But if he's standing, if they all know that he went to daven Kashrus, like a famous guy in L.A., so then they do whatever they want to.
It's being recorded. It's always being watched.
Right, I'm saying they have no idea who's watching the screen. So that's okay. You should just know. It's just interesting is when I mention this to somebody, mention my father, he says he thinks punk fakir. He said there's another angle. I never thought of it until he said that. He said there's a certain side of that people have when they see a person. So a person gives them the mirrors as opposed to a camera. With time they just forget about it. They just go about their business. They slips from their mind. Okay. Any of these people think there's a mila to that. And another thing is this is not what they had in mind. But if you remember, we talked about a shiloh way back then. We talked about making Chalav Yisroel, shiloh from Pri Chodesh. That if the guy knows that you can't come, the Pri Chodesh said you need 2 mashgichim when you're doing Chalav Yisroel because when you're Yetzev Nichnas. Because if he knows you can't come, then it's not Yetzev Nichnas. There's no mirrors, and which is negate to a person running farms. We spoke about it then. If he's taking care of the 3 farms, when he's at one farm, then the other farm, they have phones, so they know that he's not coming to the other farm. So this would take care of that also, because the same guy could be in all places at once. There's no time he could be at one, they can't see him the other. Okay, so in Eretz Yisrael, the big dairy is Tenuva. Rabbi Whiteman, he runs the Hashgacha for Tenuva. He asked the Shayla Rabbi Yashiv and others, and they told him that it's okay. It's printed that he said that, and Rabbi Fishbein just spoke to tell us. He also himself asked the Shayla, and Rabbi Yashiv told him also that it's fine, and you can do it through video cameras. Okay? And that's what they do. That's why I understand that they do that, or at least they think that they're allowed to do it. I believe that they still do it. And that's why that's what they do. Okay? So what we're going to talk about is first some shilas, some halachic shilas to it, and then some practical shilas to it, practical issues to deal with it, to see if this really makes sense. Okay. So we know when you make Chalav Yisroel, when the Yid is watching, the Yid has to create a mirsus. There has to be mirsus. And really that's a very important part of making something Chalav Yisroel is that there should be mirsus. To the point that the Gemara says you don't even have to see it. Okay, even though the Mishnah says you have to see it, you have to be if you sit on the outside and you could see it. The Gemara says even if you didn't actually see it, you're in a place where if you would stand up, you could see it. All kinds of ideas that you can make a mirsus. And the logic is, like we said, that if you have a camera, that makes the mirsus just as good, and that works. Okay, so Rabbi Weissman wrote a tshuva about this, and he says people doing it by video camera are completely missing the boat. Okay? That's what he doesn't say those words, but basically he says is that they're completely missing the whole point of what we're trying to do. They said, why don't we eat? He's Rabbi Weissman. He eats Chalav Yisroel. He says, why don't we eat Chalav Stam? Why don't we do that? Why do we need Chalav Yisroel? why aren't we eating chol stam? No, chol stam. Nowadays, aren't we samach that chol stam is mushas? He says, why aren't we samach on that? So he says, the reason is because Ramosh is machadish that for the din of Chalav Yisroel, it's enough to have yediyah b'li re'iyah. Okay, that Ramosh brings many writers, as we spoke about, that you need yediyah b'li re'iyah, and therefore it's good enough. And he says, and we don't hold like that. We hold that you need re'iyah. Specifically, you need to eat a re'iyah. It doesn't help to have yediyah b'li re'iyah. Ramosh's point is that you can do yediyah b'li re'iyah. He says, we don't hold to that. You have to have re'iyah. He says, so, if you do have a person watch it by video camera, he says, that's not re'iyah. He says, I don't know if he uses exactly this example, but if a person was trying to make a get, okay, a get has to have Adam watching it. If Adam watched the get being given over a video camera, would that be a kosher get? No, it wouldn't be kosher get. But, maybe, yeah. So I asked Rabbi Friedman. I said, Rabbi Friedman, would that be kosher get? Would that be, you're dying on a bezin? Would you consider that Adus? So I said, not would it be kosher with Adus for things that you want to know information? Did the guy lend him $10? Do we want to know what happened in the story? He says, would it be kosher when you need an example where the agent have to see something? He says, no, we wouldn't. He says, no, we wouldn't. He says, is there a Chalav does his own guess? I asked him from his experience in the Bezin, and he said his impression is that it's not acceptable. He said I did not get Rabbi Schwartz. It was a time. I forgot what was going on then when I dealt with this, something like that. He said he compared it. He said some Zalman says not everybody agrees, but it's sort of accepted. Some Zalman says that you can't answer amen to a bracha that they hear over the phone. Right. Some Zalman says because you're not hearing the bracha, you're hearing a digital recreation of the bracha. Right. He said so here also. I'm not seeing the act. I'm seeing a copy of the act. I'm not seeing the people themselves. They're 100 miles away. I'm seeing a camera a picture that's showing what happened. He said, so
it's a pre-risdicadin. It's not a.
No,
it's a pre-risdicadin. It's not a.
No. So that's what Rabbi Weissman was thinking. It's not a matter of yediyah. No, if it was yediyah, he said, we need to close down. He said, the point is not the yediyah. The point is re'iyah. If Chazal said you have to have re'iyah, so I didn't have re'iyah.
That's a re'iyah.
They know they did say you have to have re'iyah. That's how they understand the way we say. Rabbi is saying you need to have yediyah. The Mishnah says you have to see it. Okay, the Gemara says you can do certain things. Taisus even we talked about this way back then, which is wait a second. The Gemara's examples are not singing. Taisus explains how really it is singing. It's considered like you're singing. And he sort of Weissman will say the ones who are being machmir see only Chalav Yisroel. They're saying is because we don't hold the vidibul. You have to have re'iyah. You have to have re'iyah mamish. He says so re'iyah mamish. I didn't get any re'iyah. Didn't help anything. Yes.
Let's say someone's Skyping somebody, and there's two people in front of them, and one's holding a gun.
Okay.
I'm just for example. He gives him Hasra. He says, if you kill him, you got to go to the base, and he shoots him and he kills him. You ain't in game Hasra. Nothing would happen. That's not considered Hasra.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I asked. That's what I asked. In case when you need edus, when you don't need to know evidence whether it happened, as in do you own the $10? When you need to have edus, he said it wouldn't. That's what I asked him. That's what I did. That's why I asked the question. Okay, so now hearing what Rabbi Weissman said. Just makes us rethink. It gives us a different focus onto why was it that there are people who don't hold stam. What was wrong with what Ramosha said? Why don't we hold to that? So Ramosha really had two parts to what he said. Okay, there were two. If we could split it into two parts to what he said, you'll understand what I'm about to say. He said is yediyah below your ear works. Okay, that's one part, and the second part is what we have in front of us is a yediyah. Okay, what we have in front of us, the government oversight provides the idea. Rabbi Weissman was saying that the people who call this all arguing on the first part. They're saying Yediyah b'lo Yediyah is not good enough. You need Re'iyah mamash. Many other people would say that we would argue on the second part, which is Yediyah b'lo Yediyah works. Rabbi has rights from all over the place. Rabbi has rights from things that mamash need edus. That even when you need edus, Yediyah works also. That's right. Rabbi brings rights to that. He says, I didn't even think of this. One of Rav Moshe's riots is from Gerus. No, from Gerus. It's from a place about Gerus. So by Gerus, the Bezdin has to watch the person being toivel, and even so, Yediyah works. Even if they never saw with their eyes b'chlal. They saw nothing. That's a Taisus. I should have put that for Rabbi Friedman. But anyhow, that's one. But the other arguments are there were many other ways to argue on the Yediyah part of it. Let's go through each one of Rav Moshe's shuvas. The first shuvah was that the government oversight provides a bureau. Okay, lots of people could question that, whether the government oversight means anything. The second shuvah was about Well, the government has such small farms that, come on, no one's afraid of them. Okay, you can argue on that. The third tshuva was, guess what? The government doesn't even watch the farms. Okay, that was the third tshuva. So maybe so Rav Moshe was Machali's answer for that also. And then there's a general thing, which we talked about after that, which was there are people who are, it's written actually, who are concerned that if you're being samach or Rav Moshe, so you have your below your ear, it's a slippery slope. And soon you'll be taking milk from all kinds of strange places, where you'll expand this hectare into all kinds of places. As we spoke about last, right? Like as we spoke about last time, you'll take milk from all kinds of strange places that you'll think, well, there's your deal over here, there's your deal over here, and you can expand into, all kinds of things that we heard about. How off you can go. So what I'm saying is, these are all different ways that people argue, not on the din part of what Rav Moshe said. Rav Moshe said in din the idea of works, and he had all kinds of riots, and there were those who argued on that. That's true. And that's what Rabbi Weissman was saying. But the other reason to say it's not automatic. The other argument is, no, Yediyah below your ear works. The question is just, is there a Yediyah? Is it true that there really is a Yediyah? And if you hold like that the problem is the Yediyah, well then watching the video is 100%. Come on, the guy's watching him do it. There's not a question about the Yediyah. He did the bureau part of it. Is he sure about it? Much more sure than the government oversight. The guy must standing watching it on a video camera. So that seemingly, that's what the machlokes here is, whether you could use the video cameras or not. When Yasha told him that you could use it, and others who said that you could use it, from the din side of it, they're saying that what was wrong with why they disagreed with Rav Moshe was because they hold you need a real yediyah, and they didn't think what Rav Moshe said provided a real yediyah. All of his points were questionable, and therefore they're satisfied with the yediyah. Rabbi Weissman was saying, no, the problem is you need ru'iyah mamish. And since you need Riyah Mamish, he didn't think this qualified.
They hold it to consider Riyah.
That what?
Or they hold it to Riyah.
That's true. You're right. They could argue on that part. You're right. You're right. They could argue and say that for a Ma'aseh Beis it could work by Riyah also. Okay, fine.
Sure, there are chuvas on this.
So
I'm saying, I don't. I'll have next week. Shavuos.
I'm sure you covered it before, but you didn't talk about the aspect about how can you be without the Zayr unless you go to the middle of the road.
No, because no one's trying to be about the Xeris.
Saying it didn't apply here.
When we talked about it, we were back a few weeks already. The Chum said you have to have a Riyah. And Rav Moshe says when it says that, when there's such a din like that, it includes more than that. There are lots of cases. Like I just mentioned a second ago, by Geras, the Bezdin has to watch the person being toivel, and the case brings that they don't have to watch it. Because whatever Taisus right is, there's a way that they could know the person was toivel even though they never saw it. No, they don't. It means you have to have a level of evidence, and we have that level of evidence. Now we move on to the Chashmish B'Chazah. Is it evidence or not? Okay. Now, so that's one shiloh that there was about using it. Okay. The next question is, there's somebody named Mordechai Rose. He's actually involved with Tulu also, and he wrote a tshuva about this also, about whether you should use video cameras. And he brings up two other sort of halachic shilohs that are like this. Okay. Two sets of questions. I'm going to do one at a time. When we say, if you want to have a video camera watching the person, how much video does there have to be of the person? Does the video have to be on every second? Or is it enough if the video goes, let's say you had one screen that went from place to place to place, okay? What I mean is that the people who are being watched don't have any idea which camera is pointing at them right now. Okay, we've got rid of his light. They don't have no idea which camera is pointing at them. Let's say the cameras go off for a couple of minutes. Okay, what happens? Is that good enough?
Is that worse than the Kayahazi?
So is it like Yotzev and Nichnas? Or the Gemara said a guy could, if he could stand up, he'd be able to see it, or if he couldn't stand up, he wouldn't be able to see it. Is that an example of that? Or is it, and that's the point, is you have to make mirrors. Mercy doesn't have to see every second. You just have to make a certain feeling that the people are afraid to do something. Or do you maybe have to see? Does it maybe have to be on?
You need the pilots of seeing it all.
They see it all. Yes. So he says. What about the fact that it's very important? Where exactly? It's like a cow's hair, and then we look at the pipe is there. There's many pipes and many. Okay, I'm not saying it. There's all sorts of ways you can. Yes, okay, you take care of dairy company. That would be the thing that you just spread. No, you take care of dairy company, that's why you think like that. 100%. No, we're getting to that. But, and this is when we have these cameras, we have to have somebody watching, how much, do you have to just, so to speak, seconds here and there, you can see enough? He says, what if the cameras went out for a while? What happened then? The guys don't know. The people at the farm, they had no idea that the camera went out. But when I said there was no camera for a half an hour. Okay, so what would he say? So he says, he brings a diak. he sprints from Pri Chodesh and Chochmas Adam. It's stronger in the Pri Chodesh. I believe that he's reading it correctly. You could read it differently. Okay, the Pri Chodesh, it by coincidence, by interesting is this is the same piece of Pri Chodesh who says that you could drink all the milk and you don't have to have Chalav Yisroel. Okay, you can drink all the milk because nobody mixes milk. So he says, after he says this whole thing as to why it's milk, he says, but if you wouldn't meet my criteria, and you would need to have, in a regular case, you need to have Chalav Yisroel. So he says, V'gam, oh my gosh, it's so hard to read.
We have a lot of Shulchan if you want.
Okay, V'gam, tzorech liros, here's the crucial word, the next word is kol. Okay, V'gam tzorech liros, kol ha-chaliva mitchila v'yatzoif.
Right.
You have to watch the whole chaliva. Oy b'yotzev v'nichnas, oy b'oy misham b'tzad ha'eder, in a way that you could stand up and see the thing like this. And his understanding is, which is really, it's really deep from the Gemara. The Mishnah says, if you chol of shechol v'akav v'enis or reu, it only works if the Yid watches it. When the Gemara says you could use Yotzev V'nichnas, I've told this a bunch of times. Sometimes even answer, what are you talking about? How could the Gemara say you could use Yotzev V'nichnas? How can it say that you would stand up? Doesn't the Mishnah say you have to see everything? To which Shaisis gives an answer that when Chazal, the Gemara's understanding, when Chazal said you have to see, they meant that you have to be in a place where you could see. That's what you have to be in a place where you could see. So Rabbi Gross says, Marshall Gross says, he says, what he's saying, it's a Chochmas Adam also, is that you have to be in a place that you could always see the milking. You don't have to actually see it. If you're able to, or you could stand up, or you could walk around the corner, you could come to. You have to be in a situation where you could see the milking all the time.
Go to sleep for 8 hours in the room.
If the Yotzev V'nichnas went to sleep, that's fine. He went to the next farm, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at least he's in a position where he could see. But if he has no camera pointing at it, all the cameras go off for a couple of minutes. So at this point, there's no way to see the milking from where I am. It's not possible. It's not I can go over there. I'm here. The milk is going on in Texas. Okay, I can't see the milking going on. I'm not at all within range of being able to see that. He says that's not, at least on the Chatchila. Maybe the evidence. On the Chatchila level, he says that's not considered Riyah. Exactly. If it's farm A to B, that means so I'm from here to here. So it's considered that I'm able to see it because I could go over there and see it.
So I also could go over there.
It's 200 miles away.
I can't work if I could go there.
200 miles away.
So then everything's always going on. If in Wisconsin, I could drive to Wisconsin and see it.
The one thing is that the guy knows or not. If the guy doesn't know the cameras went off, that's good.
Is there a time limit?
The guy has, from the Mercer side of it, the guy doesn't know the difference. But the guy doesn't know that I can't see, but it's not possible for me to see him. When I'm Yotzev V'nichnas,
what is the time limit? An hour, 4 hours?
It takes me 10 minutes to get there.
right, so that's considered that I can see.
What is the getter?
You're talking about the goes
What is the getter? Depends who's driving.
The one should be what the guy knows. That's what the one should be.
So you think, if there's a Mercer and we're holding that I could see, I could potentially go, so that the whole world is open. I mean, when I go to India,
I can go to India unless there's a time limit, Rabbi Cole. You think it's 20 minutes? Is it an hour?
So when he says, Gam Tzorach Liros Kol HaChaliva, you mean, what is he trying to say? You have to see the whole Chaliva. What do you mean? You have to see the whole Chaliva. He said, so he says, you see,
you have to be able to see everything.
No,
it's not true.
It's not Kashrus. It's a Mishnah. The Mishnah said you have to see the milking.
Set it up. You have to
see the milking.
We'll be able to see it every second, but that's not true because you could be far away as long as you could.
No, so you could see it.
Elamai, the point is the message. So then the message is said also.
So you think I have to be able to see the whole thing in order to make mirrors all the time. There can't be an hour when there was no mirrors. He says over here the mirrors is anyhow. The point of the call is to create a mirrors all the time. So, and the physically being able to go there is a joke. I mean, because you can go any place, big deal. Like you go to Bangladesh also, right? I can go any place. It doesn't mean anything. There wouldn't be a mirror if the guy knew I was here and he was there. But here, that doesn't work. Okay, fine. I can hear that. Okay, that's not how he says it. Okay, there's a pure Rashi over here.
Machaber left.
Pure
You have to control the cameras when they go on and off.
Yeah.
Or let's say if once we...
No, that would be fine. That wouldn't be a shiloh. But his shiloh was, he says, what happens if the cameras go out for a few minutes? What happens if the guy can't even see, he can't see it, something went wrong and he can't see that one? Okay.
What is the share even if it was Rabbi Land and Clovis?
We talked about that already. You missed it.
She has to be real. The guy really thinks he could read it. That's the Kashrus.
3 weeks ago. When we talked about should make Clovis. Okay, next. His next question is, he says, what happens if the Mashgiach wasn't there? Okay, Mashgiach slept through his shift. Okay, he wasn't there. but could he watch the cameras afterwards? He says it's all on videotape. Okay, so could he watch the cameers afterwards? Could the guy? Yeah, could he come after? He doesn't talk about. I don't think he's talking about Shabbos, but could he come back after Shabbos and watch it?
About Shabbos.
It's his son's bar mitzvah, so he wants. He's not coming today. He says, I don't come to work today. The guys don't know. They have no idea that I'm not coming. And even if they know that I'm not there, but they know I'm going to watch the tape. So even if they knew I wasn't there today, big deal. But they know that it's being taped. So I'll come by with. Why can't I watch the tape tomorrow? So maybe I should do that. There are cameras that only record when things move on the thing. So maybe I should do it. Listen, for hours on end, nothing happens. So when something's happening, I'll come by and I'll watch it. I'll just watch a shortened version of the whole thing. What's it?
So we have experience with that.
It doesn't sound that with cheese.
Okay, so it's not exactly clear what he answers to this question.
It's Rabbi Gross.
Yeah, Rabbi Gross. What he's answering to the question. He implies that would qualify as yediyah, but would not qualify as a riyah. Okay? He doesn't say what I'm about to say, but that brings us back to what we talked about beforehand, that if you hold that you need a riyah mamish, that it would not be good because you missed it. The cows were milked, the milk was sitting in a truck, and there was no riyah. If you need just a yediyah, the impression is if you need just a yediyah, so okay, I have yediyah. I know now that it's okay. What does I know now? I know when I found it out. I figured it out, that the stuff is only cows. Okay? So it's not so clear which he holds on. Okay. So now we have those like two sort of halach questions we have to deal with. And now, what we now have to move on to is the technical, this is Yassi's, this is a technical question about what you have to do. In order to make...
You mean if you hold that video is good?
Assuming that in theory the video is good, and I'll say it already now, the people who matter it, they didn't believe me. They didn't bring Rabbi Yashiv to the farm to decide where to put the cameras. Okay? What did they tell him? They told him, we're going to have a camera that's going to monitor it, and they told him, I'm sure, details of what they were going to do. And so, assuming that the details are right, assuming that the problem of how you're going to carry it out, then he's being masking that that's mutter to do that. Okay? But there's a lot of details that have to be straightened out. Okay? You need cameras that not only do they watch the milking, they have to watch. There's a whole farm to watch. There's not a whole farm to watch. There's lots of piping to watch. There are trucks to watch. There's all kinds of things that have to be watched. Not only in the places where you think they're going to put the trait milk, but in places where they're not going to. Because again, if there's a mashgiach standing there, nobody could break open a pipe and attach a hose to it without the mashgiach knowing about it. There's a mashgiach on the farm. But if you just have 3 cameras that are always pointing at the same place, then the piping that's not being covered, who knows what's going to happen? Nobody's there to keep a cloud. If he was standing in the place, if there were guys with a big backhoe in the back on the other side breaking things apart, he would know what was going on. So he's the mashgiach. But if you're going with a camera,
that mashgiach in those instructions.
What instructions?
To watch the piping. I assume a mashgiach is going for the chaliva, so he's standing by the cows and that's it.
No. His job is to make that. Wait, his job.
I did 30-some years
Okay. So everybody who uses milk should not.
It's like watching the
You were smart enough to know.
30 years ago.
Break open the pipe, put something in it. No. When you go, I learned this the hard way. I really did. When you go into a factory and you have pipes, you have containers, you have anything that could potentially be used in any way whatsoever. You have to know where they are. You have to know what they're doing. You have to know what they're going to do with it. And then on top of it, you have to follow up and make sure that that's exactly what's happening.
Right. Okay. So we have all these details to work on, and of course the system has to not be like you play around with it. You can't have you can pull out plugs or push the cameras in this and that. Okay. But then after all these problems that we have to work on, there's one thing that seems like it's impossible, much more difficult to deal with, and that was the Ramah said that in order to make Chalav Yisroel, before you put the milk into the container, you have to check the container to make sure it's empty. It's a chiyuv to check before you start to make sure it's empty. That there's no milk in the before because you can watch all day kosher milk. If there was trait milk in the pot, it doesn't do any good. It was already trait before you. So how do you do that? They're going to bring a little camera over to the milking area and check it out, stick it into every truck. They're going to say, okay, Rabbi, you're watching, and I'll bring my camera over to watch it. And every place where milk is going to go, milk goes into lots of trucks and tanks and all kinds of things that are holding it. Every one of them's got to be checked beforehand. So there's a mashgiach there, big deal. They will show the truck is empty. But so how do you do that remotely? How do you pull that off? I'm not saying it's impossible. It's a hurdle to figure out, not just to have set up cameras, just standing where they're supposed to be. There aren't cameras inside the truck. I don't know. So now, I'll just call out.
So if it's only to create a picture, you don't have to tell them where the cameras are.
No, you're not telling where the cameras are.
If it's only to create a picture.
But guess what? If the cameras are here and here and here, and then at this part,
But if you have past experience, and nowhere in America did this ever happen,
did whatever happened?
that they went and they put in trace milk through the pipes or something like that.
But that's what you're supposed to be watching. You got to watch it to make sure they don't do that. So if you're being cautious that maybe someone will do it.
You're giving them a basis. You're basing yourself on the past experience.
Yeah, but let's say he said like this. You just watch the cows.
Telling
You only
where
point
the
the
camera is.
I don't see where the camera is.
We don't camera in the truck.
So that everybody could be massive. Maybe it helps.
For what?
For the pipe. As long as you know it's clean. You know, the immune system.
How we know it's clean?
Do you check every truck that has a plumb on?
For Chalav Yisroel?
No, for anything. You have you're in a factory.
No,
And there's
but for this, there's a special thing that you have to watch before. You have to watch before you put the container. You have to make sure the container's empty before you start. So maybe if it'll have a seal, and you'll say, okay, that by looking at that seal, I know that it went to a wash facility before. So maybe that's the way to do it. Okay, so maybe they're doing something like that. Okay, I have to tell you what someone just said. I think he just said, which is, I actually asked Tenuva if I could come watch it, and they were more than happy that I should watch it.
Can we get a ticket?
No, we're working on that. But they were masculine. They're more than happy. So a lot of these technical things, maybe seeing live, we would understand how they overcome this. But they were happy to do it.
I had combined.
They have not
What cameras?
If I could go see their setup, how they do this, and they were more than happy.
They have cameras.
Yeah, that was the beginning. They were more than happy. So these technical things, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying, and maybe they're doing it well. I'm just saying there's a lot of details to figure out. Even if in din you thought it was okay, there's a lot of pratim that have to be worked out. And again, they offer, I asked them, can I come to them? No problem. They were happy to do it. We haven't worked it out yet. But one day I'll make it there to see what it looks like. Okay, one last thing we're going to do.
What's the rabbi's name there again?
Whiteman.
It's just when you're dark, so right?
What'd you say?
Make sure when you're dark, so right?
Well, that would be nice. Okay. There's actually a chassan on Sunday. I have a chassan on Sunday, my nephew, so in case you want to work it out. So. Anyhow, okay, one more thing is, it's a very related question. Okay, it's not exactly, but the shilos are very related, and that is, this is a European thing, which is, they call computerized farms, or robot farms. And that is, they have farms, even in America they do this a certain amount, that they're very highly automated. And these farms over there, they're so automated to the point that there's nobody there or almost nobody in the farm b'chal. What does that mean? It means is the cows, however they encourage them to come to the right spots, but the milking, what?
What's else possible?
Okay, the milking machinery won't milk a cow until the cows have tags in them that you see here in America. They have tags in their ears, that digital tags that tell the machine who this is.
Kosher.
This is cow number whatever. The computer tracks the whole cow's history. It knows everything about this cow. And assuming that this cow is so to speak, allowed to be here, or it's the time of the day that they're supposed to be milked, the machine will milk him, and it keeps track of everything. It's very automated. There's very little human involvement. Okay, whether it's true that there's really nobody or not, I don't know. But the point is, almost always. What? That's a question. They put it by the feeding. I'm not sure how they do that. That's not our detail. But come on, Google it.
No, that's automatic.
That's automatic.
They have a pneumatic system that just raises it.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever. Anyhow, so the people, they're in Europeans who will say that is considered, if they watch all the systems and everything's set up the way it's supposed to be, then they'll say that thing is also, it could be Chalav Yisroel, because it's not possible. If a horse would walk up to be milked, the machine wouldn't milk him. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't milk the horse, because actually if a cow walked over from the next farm, they wouldn't milk him either, because they only milk cows that it recognized as part of their system. So therefore they say that's Kashrus. Okay, so the first one.
How do you know when this got put on what?
Another maybe looked at somewhere else.
Assuming that the Yidden will watch over the system to say that the only authorized things to be milked are these cows. We look at the farm. Okay, this cow 1 to 100. I look at the computer. The computer is only authorized to milk cows number 1 to 100, not cow number 101. Because I see who all the tags were given to. Each tag belongs to a specific cow. So now that I know these are the cows that the tag is given to, I see we only milk from those cows, so I know I only came from those cows. If even a cow from another farm wouldn't have milked.
So it's enough to do what?
I'll watch the computer.
Once a month?
I'll watch the computer. And then watch the computer and see that it only milks its cows. It only milks these kind of cows. I know where the milk came from. It came from these bunch of cows. Right, they wouldn't have to be there. They wouldn't want to be there.
You got the separate with the pipes and everything.
That's what I'm talking about. It's very related. Okay, the first question, we have our first child, which is, it's a yadi without a riyah. Okay, the same kind of questions. Okay, this is an example of a yadi without a riyah. The way...
We change the tags at any given time.
So yours is not even a yadi. Okay, your question of yadi. Okay, but but then, when we get to the practical side of it, we have a lot of the same practical questions that we had over here. The way Rabbi Belsky said it when he spoke about it was, he said, I don't need a raya that the milk from the cow is from a cow. His whole result is not to make sure that the cows look from the cows. The raya we need is that they didn't stick anything else into it. He says, what does it help me to know that I know that the cows milk is from cows? I need to know that they didn't put anything else into the thing. So it doesn't help just to watch the cows. It doesn't help just to watch the computer. Say, I only milk these cows. Of course you only milk the cows. But maybe someone stuck other milk in separately. From an outside source, he said, what does it help? So maybe you could avoid that because the systems are very specific. So if they milk 5 gallons from him and 8 gallons from him and 12 gallons from this guy, all the cows, you can add the numbers, and that should be equal to what's in the container. Okay, so if our container has
what we call accounting,
forensic counting.
So
it has
number one.
It has 6,100 gallons of milk, and I can count up all the cows that I got it from. So then maybe you can get it around that, but you realize that there's a huge risk in that, because if they're off by 5 gallons, okay, which is not crazy. I mean, it's not unusual that they should be off by 5 gallons, right? The whole truckload of stuff, and we're off by 5 gallons, then the whole thing is not kosher then, right? It's only going to be kosher if everything is exactly the way, if the numbers add up exactly. If you end up off by 2 gallons, you're finished. Okay, so I don't know how exact the computer is, but it has to be really so exactly like that, okay? Anyhow, so we're on page 3, I don't know what it says. Okay, so, and my last thing on here is that, of course, is that I said to you all the technical question of finding out the kalim were empty. We're going to run through the same thing. So a lot of the shilas are very similar to the shilas that we had for the video cameras. But this is a European thing, and that's an Israeli thing. 2 different places. I guess we'll say Baruch Hashem for our good. In America, that doesn't exist yet. In America, Chalav Yisroel, stuff that's made as Chalav Yisroel is still done the good old traditional way. That's the whole feel of Chalav Yisroel. Let's do it be traditional. The whole idea when we do a video camera of Chalav Yisroel doesn't sort of go. It doesn't it's the wrong chevra, But anyhow, but this is what's going on in those different places.